I would push back against that. I don't think that's the lesson that anyone is learning from seamless co-op is PvP bad. I think the obvious lesson that everyone's learning is that in an open world video game, no one wants their phantom sent home at the end of every boss. We're gonna watch Steelovsky's video. It's a mini podcast with Dang It Jim, G9, Gabri, and KH Knight, and they're talking about PvP balance. We were talking a bit about this ourselves, so now let's see what they have to say about it.
KH Knight invited me to the podcast. Hi YouTube, welcome. KH Knight invited me to the podcast with Jim, Gabri, and G9. We had to talk about many aspects of the game, but one of them was multiplayer. Statement as Elden Ring multiplayer fucking sucks is not a secret at all, but the question is why. So we had a short session of videoing about that exact topic.
I think one thing that's like that is really killing Elden Ring's activity is truly the pearl calling finger. That thing should not exist.
That's a good call, by the way. The fact
that should not. Let me explain to you why. So I'm sure you guys know, but just
the pearl calling finger, by the way, is the item that you activate to enable co-op. That's what they're talking about.
Want to just people are watching. So the idea of pearl calling finger becomes a double opt-in system. You're not opt-in one time. You twice opt-in. You can a casual who doesn't know how about PvP, multiplayer, and everything like that. They could literally go through the game with never seen anything related to multiplayer, player interaction, right? That's how how bad it is. Whereas previously you can never go online and not get invaded, not get any interaction, not see a sign, like imagine I'm a new player. I'm just putting myself in a casual mindset, right? I'm playing Elden Ring. If pearl calling finger didn't exist, right? I walk up, oh, I see somebody's sign. If I see some sign, I'm so curious what's going on. What is that? I click on it, and then the player comes in. Like, these matter. These matter with activity.
Yeah, that's so true.
I sometimes do hosting videos when I am done with an absolute garbage activity in the multiplayer. I'm starting hosting and just inviting decent players to do some 2v2s and so on. Every single video of this type, I have at least few comments out of more casual type of crowd that is asking, oh, you can have 2 invaders in your world? How did you do that? People don't.
No way. No way. That's real. There's actually people who don't know how to get 2 invaders in your world. Well, I guess that makes sense. It's actually kind of confusing.
No,
You're not wrong.
Yeah, this is actually this is legitimately a thing. People have no idea you can literally have this fucking counterstomp enabled besides the first finger. The fact you have to opt in with 2 items is fucking ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna hear me disagree on this point, to be honest, chat. This is removing the connection between if they had the old DS3 system where you beat a boss, you become embered, or in this case great runed, and then when you're great runed up in this game, you are invadable. I think that would just be such a more positive experience for people overall. Dried Finger was more obscure. Yeah, but you didn't need to know about Dried Finger in order to actually engage with the PvP of the game, right?
It might sound silly. Oh, you have to just click 2 buttons. No, that matters when it comes to activity, right? And then what I would recommend doing from that aspect, you can't just remove an item from the game, right? What I would recommend is, how you have the blue summons, auto summons, how it works, where you turn on and it's on all the time or off all the time until you turn it off, I would recommend just making it like that, where by default it's on, and then you use the item if you don't want it to turn it off. Does that make sense? And then when you start, no, it's currently right now.
But aside from that, it's basically the same, no?
No, it's basically by default. I'm saying, by default, it's you're solo invadable. You see all the signs, you see all of that stuff, right? That's by default, is what I'm saying. And then you use the item to turn it off.
Oh, okay. So you.
And then when you restart the game, it goes back to the default, which is it's always on. Like, does that make sense? So
Yeah,
like,
that's gonna be annoying for people who legitimately do not want the PvP though. That's a bit like forcing it upon them.
no, but like that. Okay, the option is to just click an item and then that's it. Move on. Like how
But
it's
every
more
time
annoying.
you turn it on.
I would say that feature already exists.
I actually agree with this, by the way. I really, really, really agree with this. I'm actually totally fine with opt-out PvP, not opt-in PvP. Like what, and I actually completely agree with his take here too, that it should be something that's on by default. Or again, I would be happy if it was connected to something like Rune Arking as well too, just like DS3. I'd be happy with that as well. But the idea is that, like, if you are playing online, that online play is expected. Like, that's the normal. I think one of the reasons Elden Ring has such a weird PvP experience is that, again, if we're being honest, dueling is a small part of what makes PvP, and people who get into PvP get in because they engage with invasions, either getting invaded or invading others, right? So having that just enabled as a default, like that you're either solo invadable or duo invadable, whatever the case is, I think is one of the changes that definitely needs to happen for Elden Ring to have a lifespan. And let me explain specifically what I mean by that. I don't know if they're going to touch on this, but I don't think that Elden Ring will be able to survive 6 years in the same way that Dark Souls 3 was. If we get to a point, you know, DLC comes out, maybe even 2 DLCs come out, and the PvE player base has dropped off a cliff, and it's mainly just kind of more hardcore PvP people keeping the game alive, right? That's what happened in the lifespan of DS3. That's why I'm modeling it after that. If we get to year 4, let's say year 4-ish, right? I think Elden Ring could probably survive 3, maybe 4 years, in its current balance state. So let's say we get to that year 3, year 4, end of the game's life cycle experience, right? And instead of the Dark Souls 3 experience that you had for the last 2 years, which was a small amount of organic invasions, a lot of people just kind of hosting invasions, doing fight clubs, that kind of stuff. If we get to that point and the only real invasions that you can get are 3v1 invasions, or at best 2v2 invasions with people who are really intentionally doing that, the game will not survive. There's just no way that people will sign up for that kind of experience. It's just so fundamentally host-sided in such an extreme manner that I just don't think that there's an actual like lifespan beyond that.
This being play online, play offline launch function is already a thing in the main menu when you turn on the game before you even have to mess around with it.
Yeah, JM is spitting. Exactly. Don't want to get invaded? Play offline.
Remedy. I think that the moment you click online from the very get-go, you are sort of adhering to almost like the game's social contract.
Spitting.
My messages in my bloodstains.
Yeah, the messages and the bloodstains, right? But to a certain extent, right?
I want my spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. They're adhering to co-op invasions and whatever the game entails.
That's so funny hearing G just in the background. my messages.
You're jumping to Limgrave, and the first message you see, Fortnite. This is what I need in my life to improve my experience, dude.
You know what? Like Jim hit it on the nail there. Like we're trying to get like a ways around the system, but if you really think about it from the ground up, like why is this even necessary to talk about? Like if you already clicked multiplayer, that's it. Multiplayer.
You're in it.
Yeah. Like the only thing that legitimately the only thing that legitimately annoys me in Souls game is that we have that fucking bazillion different items for different fucking reasons and so on. Honestly, having like something like in the seamless co-op, we have that item called Judicator's Rulebook, yeah, and it's essentially a thing that allows you to set the rules of the world, yeah, if everyone is friendly, if only certain like players are friendly, if like everyone is enemy to each other and so on, yeah. I think that would be so much fucking better system to have like a one multiplayer item that is essentially just responsible for setting up your world rather than, you know, having like a few different items. The one is that is enabling the blues, another one that is allowing you to your teammate to connect, another one that allows you to invaders to connect to your world, or like, you know, one invader to connect to you. Like all these things, like this is like billions of different items that just like are more confusing than helpful in any way, shape, or form.
I do have an issue with like about seamless co-op, like you mentioned it. It's actually, I'm scared about something. It's so popular, right? To the point where I'm worried it gives the wrong impression from software about like how should they go about, you know, doing the PvP, and what that would be like making it even more limited than now, because seamless co-op you require a password just to play with people, right? Like you need to have a password. So imagine making password invasion, that would kill the game even more, right? So I'm just worried about how like the whole seamless co-op.
I would push back against that. I think that's KH Knight speaking. I would push back against that. I don't think that's the lesson that anyone is learning from seamless co-op is PvP bad. I think the obvious lesson that everyone's learning is that in an open world video game, no one wants their phantom sent home at the end of every boss. Like I don't know. I'm maybe I'll let him cook a little bit more, but I think it's pretty obvious to most people that what is actually really core appealing to seamless co-op is not having to resummon. And that's it's definitely a side benefit for people that they don't get invaded, for sure. It's just yeah, and riding horses, yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. It's those smaller pieces I definitely think are the beating core of why it's why it's a popular mod.
Co-op talked, you know, praising it too much because I don't want them to give the wrong.
And I do think it's an example of how the PvP community get in their own heads and think only from our own perspectives about how it's like, oh, like the lesson they're gonna learn is that PvP bad. It's like, well, no. From a PvE focused perspective, you're doing it for ease of access. It's about ease of access. It's not about avoiding PvP necessarily.
Wrong impression and
no,
anything like
I
this.
don't think they, you know.
Well, Seamless does things way better though.
Yeah.
No, in some departments, but the aspect of the password just only co-op, I do not like. You don't want that for the entire game. You get what I'm saying? Like,
I think the biggest reason people play Seamless is to just be able to seamlessly, as the name suggests, just play through the entire game without having the
co-op.
Yeah, G's spitting.
Yeah, co-op.
Yeah, I really don't think, you know, like the aspect of you being separated from everyone else, yeah, and like not having to bother for the invaders. Of course, this is argument to some people. I am sure about that. But the main argument is just because like co-op fucking works, unlike in the actual game.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna hit you with, Gabri, was earlier we talked about how invasions aren't in many other Souls. Like that's true, but I also made like a short list of other games that like were first-person shooters or open-world third-person, and they were also had invasions like Watch Dogs, like Deathloop, like Dying Light,
yeah.
and these are games where you can, where
Deathloop, baby. Oh, Deathloop invading was so much fun. I loved that.
The home team, you can
I should play
them,
some
with the host and cooperators, could be a bunch of randoms or people who are only friends all the time. Like in Sniper Elite 5, you could just be with a friend and play through the entirety of that game. But consistently throughout that game, you have invaders constantly show up in there. They can be random, and it was more of a recent feature through Sniper Elite 5, like a recent update where they made it to where, oh, now you can put in a code, and to where if you want to be a friend and invade friends, you can do that. Watch Dogs originally had it to where you can invade people specifically on your friends list. and go out of your way to do that.
That's cool.
I think what we're all trying to like, the nail we're trying to hit on the head is that there are better implementations of co-op out there that could still maintain the structure of random invasions and still maintain the structure of random cooperation. And it's just down to From Software to be able to implement seamlessly all of the above if it's in their power to do so. Like I'm still curious of like how the co-op / PvP structure might look like for Armored Core 6, for instance, and their Armored Core games, for instance, because I was made aware that there was like co-op PvE in some of the older games, just as much as there were like 3v3s and 4v4s in those older games. And now I'm curious of like, is it possible to retain a random summon system in Elden Ring and still give the people who want to play from like round table hold back to the open world and down below and still get invaded by random people? Is it still possible?
It's possible. It's possible.
The Fallen, I think, is actually doing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we're seeing that. Yes.
Lords of the Fallen.
It's possible to do. The only reason I mentioned seamless in a bad light is just the fact its selling point. The whole mod was you play co-op without interruption. That's why a lot of people downloaded that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want that to be seen to be, this is what people want. Just separate it even more. But I'm with you in terms of co-oping. Having it where you seamlessly go from the beginning. I want to do that kind of co-oping, right? Where I can play from the beginning towards the end, and it's like dried finger runs on steroid, right? And then you get invaded randomly throughout the way. This guy follows you to the boss fight, and you both fight, and then you kill the boss, and everybody goes home. It's like a checkpoint kind of thing. There's a lot of ways you can make it good, but as long as it doesn't affect invasions being random, that's very important to stay. Because otherwise that would kill the activity.
Very interesting. I'm gonna let the song play because I made it.
Hello, gamer. Memory spoken, wisdom goes unspoken.
Banger. Yeah, interesting. I think it'll be interesting to watch the full thing, but I think the look at the moves. Yeah. I think I liked a lot of the points that were being made there. I think fundamentally, kind of at the end of the day for Elden Ring is that some of these more fundamental stuff do need to get touched. Solo invasions, rebalancing of 3v1s. Easier accessibility to PvP. I would be super happy if we could get to a point where where PvP, both invasions and being invadable, is super accessible and is a normal part of the game right from the beginning. That's where I would hope to be. And I think that I do have hope that in the DLC, with bigger changes that are coming before the DLC as well, that we can actually get to those places. I'm just hoping that FromSoft actually listens. You know what I mean? Because they keep listening, but it always feels too slow. Yeah, I think my only real problem with FromSoft right now is not the patches that they're doing; it's how fast they're doing it. I want them to do it about 50% faster.
Hello, Tarnished. Consider clicking that like button and absolutely annihilating that subscribe button because the Coop is based. Ranny out.